Did you know 2/3 of America's adolescents now live in urban areas? That's over 19 million youth who live in America's cities, and Jesus cares about every single one of them. Kids from high-risk and under-resourced communities typically found in urban areas are less likely to meet Jesus through traditional outreach models. Most of these youth face significant challenges, including violence, homelessness, fatherlessness, abuse, neglect, addiction, and many others. In response, Youth for Christ has developed City Life, an effective ministry model that seeks to transform the lives of urban youth and the communities they live in. Trying to reach an entire city can be overwhelming. Focusing on a neighborhood allows us to see transformation take place in a city, one community at a time. City Life does this by establishing clear geographical boundaries where we will focus our investment. City Life believes that when enough individuals are changed, a community can be transformed. Building relationships by helping teens with homework, teaching them how to find and maintain a job, or how to prepare them for college provides context for actively proclaiming and demonstrating the gospel. We call this relational holistic ministry. To a teen entrenched in a series of negative life patterns, a young leader from that neighborhood can show them a different path for their life as he or she follows Jesus. That's what we call Indigenous leaders. City Life strives to empower these young leaders from the neighborhood to stay and invest in their communities and reach their peers for Christ. This is City Life. Will you join us and become part of the solution? Visit us at yfc.net/citylife to learn how.
Hello and welcome to Joy in Our Town. We've just seen the issue that we're going to be discussing today, which is youth. And with us today to discuss these issues is Fred Douglas, the Executive Director of Youth for Christ.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Fred, for being here with us. You've been involved with the youth for well over 40 years. Yeah. So I'd like to think that you are an authority, all right, on some of these different issues. And you're also a speaker that speaks at different churches and organizations to help communicate to people the needs of young people today,
right,
embodied in this time.
I like to think of myself as an advocate for youth, mm-hmm. But also an advocate for the gospel. Mm-hmm. You know, being around as long as I have, it gets scary. Uh-huh. I had a young man come up to me a couple of years ago and say, "I know exactly who you are." I was at one of the high schools, and I said, "Oh, really? Was your mom or your dad involved in one of my campus clubs back in the 80s or 70s? He goes, "No, my grandma." At that point, I knew I'd been around a long time.
But the message of Christ never gets old.
No, it does not.
And can cut through all of the different conditions of our society. And you've been able to plug into that, as well as so many other people that are involved with Youth for Christ and are working diligently to meet the needs of people. The video that we just finished seeing, it talks about city life. And city life is different than life out in the country, out in the sticks or anything else. It has completely different dynamic, and especially with the issues that many young people are dealing with in high school, uh-huh. in general life as well. And you're able to break those down and to use those.
And today, you know, one of the things that we are dealing with, I just spent time with a young man the other day uh-huh. In conversation that's mm-hmm. involved with one of our other staff. There are 6 kids in his family, mm-hmm. and no 2 kids have the same dad or the same mom. Mm-hmm. And then 2 or 3 of them he doesn't even know. So their family is just totally disbanded. And he talked about the fact he's never lived anywhere other than public housing all of his life. And that's not to disparage people in that situation, but it just goes to show the environment in which we live. There are a lot of people who don't have a lot of things going on in their favor, who need hope, who mm-hmm. need help, mm-hmm. who need something, a moral compass, or a variety of things. Mm-hmm. And
yeah, with the breakdown of so many different structures within our society, life gets complicated. It gets very complicated, and so sometimes family structures have a wide variety of structures that people
right.
have to deal with. Yeah.
Yeah, we're miles away from the what was considered the Leave It to Beaver or the Cleaver Family or Ozzie and Harriet or any of that type of stuff. The Brady Bunch. Advanced versions of the Brady Bunch now exist.
Yeah, but we're still, young people are still continually bombarded with images of what their lives should be like.
Right.
That is completely non-existent to what they're actually living.
Yeah, and that's the tough thing about media. Media brings to life things, and they don't realize, some of the folks in the media, the impact they have on our society. Take something as simple as back in the 80s when Madonna came out, and she had her hair done a certain way with the rag tied in and, you know, the belly button showing and all the jewelry. Within weeks of that being out there, junior high girls all over the place were dressing like her. Wearing the gloves and whatnot. We've had your Michael Jackson wannabes with the sequin stuff, and you know, everybody's trying to emulate or pretend to be who they see on the screen. But it doesn't just stop with that. It also goes on because some of the violence that we see in a lot of these games, kids are spending hours upon hours in their rooms, isolated, playing games online or on their computer or on their TV screen that are violent. And then their response is when something bad happens, no big deal, because they've been desensitized. So it's just a different world than the one I grew up in.
So that relationship seems to be lacking, and perhaps even a need for identity is very much there. And people look for outside, but you know, your passion in service and everything, that true identity is Christ.
Right.
That will eventually, if we are open to Jesus, will lift us out over some of life's most difficult situations. I think Tyler's story embodies that.
I didn't really have a dad. He felt more like a friend to me instead of an actual father figure, because him and my mom divorced when I was 3, and I saw him like sometimes, but he wasn't, like, for most of the part he wasn't there. I couldn't believe it. Growing up thinking someone would just leave. I didn't understand. My mom tried her best to be the best father figure as she could be, but I could tell that she was struggling and she was hurt also. We were struggling to pay rent and all the time. We don't know when stuff would go off, like electricity, our phones or whatever, and it was just, sometimes we didn't have food to eat, and it was just struggling. We were just struggling. When I turned into a 7th grader, that's when things got tough for me, because I weighed 80 pounds and I was 4'11", and I got made fun of it for a lot of times. And people would call me all these things that would go with being short and too skinny to do anything. They could break my bones with one punch or something, and I didn't have anybody. I was just alone and nobody to talk to at all. I thought suicide was the best way, but I didn't want to hurt my family that much because I cared about them. 8th grade, we were learning about slavery in our class, and I was at lunch and I was talking to my friends, the people that I usually talk to, and this kid told me to be quiet before I put an iron muzzle on you. And that just really, it just got to me. Those thoughts, suicide thoughts, stayed with me through freshman year. And after a horrible freshman year, just being constantly bullied by so many people and feeling alone, I went to YFC camp, Youth for Christ, and they really spoke to me. it really got to me when they said that God is always with you when nobody else is. And ever since that time I was at YFC camp, everything changed. Like I never felt alone ever again. And if I had nobody else, I always knew that I had him. Jesus is like a best friend, a brother, a father figure that I never had, and someone that I can always look up to. Jesus will always be with you, even though you feel alone. And I know what alone feels like, so I don't want anybody else to feel that way, ever. Sophomore year, it was just a breeze, and like I started to actually feel happy. And then I heard some news about my mom that she got cancer. And nobody in our family has ever had it before. So I was really confused and really like sad that I would lose my mom. My second time going to YFC camp, it was just so nice to actually have people to talk to, like the counselors and everything, about my problems at home and all that stuff, and it really changed my life. During YFC camp, we did a thing that like required 30 minutes of quiet time, and during that time, I just thought about like why would like something this bad happen to my mom, and I just prayed that she would get better. And when I got home, I found out that she beat it, and that really opened my eyes because he heard my prayers. From this point, from coming home from YFC, I'm going to spread the word and like how it changed my life and how it can change others' lives completely. Like it can make your life a lot better by just having him in your life and accepting him into your heart. At YFC camp, we had a ropes course, and everything was fine until it got to the end, and it was scary because there was like a really far drop, but we could jump out to something like a little bar, and it was basically the leap of faith that I had to take. And by taking that leap of faith, it's basically saying like you have to jump for Jesus to save your life. And I took that leap of faith. Youth for Christ really took a leap with me, and I'm really challenging everybody to take a leap with them. Thank you, Youth for Christ, for changing my life.
Yeah, Tyler is a great, great young man. I've known his family for a number of years. I actually spent time with his older siblings. When I stopped doing campus life work at Clackamas High School, a young man by the name of Kevin replaced me. And Kevin has spent time with Tyler from his freshman year. He's a senior now, about to graduate. And Tyler has walked through a lot of tough issues in his life. He even contemplated suicide at one time. Mm-hmm. But he's overcome all of that. He got involved not only with our program, but went to our summer camp. He went twice. Mm-hmm. And it's that, again, being away from media, being away from a lot of noise, if I can mm-hmm. call it that. He had a chance to interact with people who loved and cared about him. His mom, I know her, she's a great woman. She loves him dearly, but she is busting her behind off trying to make ends meet to take care of her kids. Mm-hmm. And so she's got to be out there working. Mm-hmm. She's a single mom. She's got 4 kids, just got all these things going on. And we were able to come alongside her mm-hmm. and help with Tyler in this instance to help him shape his beliefs about himself, his self-esteem, his understanding of God, mm-hmm. And where he wants to go in life. Mm-hmm. So that was an exciting thing. We partner with parents. We don't oppose them. We partner with them, and however we can build them up too, we do.
Well, that might be a little bit lacking. People, read about Youth for Christ, but there is a parental component in there as well. And the example, like for Tyler and for so many other people that are living that's happening everywhere. Single parents dealing with issues, and so the camp provides an outlet or an opportunity for people to unplug from the world and begin the process of developing relationships in a Christian environment.
And it's amazing because the first night we're there, invariably, we're way out in the middle of nowhere in Central Oregon, and kids see the stars.
Oh, yeah.
That you don't see in
the city. That doesn't happen.
Just that component alone, they're like, wow, And if a shooting star goes by, all these things, suddenly they realize there's something out there much greater than what we've known.
Yeah.
And we just happen to point them to who that is.
Yeah, the creator of those stars and everything else. What other types of transformations have you witnessed at the camp?
In a kid's life?
Yeah,
Well, I have seen, probably one of the story that I have told over the years, I haven't probably for several years now, is about 20 years ago, I was in our office and a businessman walks in. And he starts asking the staff if so-and-so was around, so-and-so. They said no. I was not directly involved with him, but I had got to know him through our retreats and camps. And they said, but Fred Douglass is still here. He goes, oh, I know who he is. So I came downstairs, because we had a 2-story office situation, and I saw him, and I did not recognize him at first. Then he said his name. He said, I'm Tom, and I looked at him and my jaw dropped because this guy was wearing a nice suit. I mean, he was a businessman, lives in Southern California, and he said, I want to tell you something. I wanted to come back here and thank you guys. I said, why? He says, you guys told me about Christ and about life and about how I needed to change my life. I was smoking dope, I was doing all these things, and I laughed you guys off. For 4 years, you guys still loved me all through high school. I never accepted your Jesus. And I went on. He said, just a few years ago, I hit rock bottom. I lost my wife, I lost my kids, my family, and my job. And he said, I was about to kill myself, and I heard music as I was walking through this neighborhood, and it was a church. And I remembered what you guys said about the prodigal son. I went in that church, and I turned my life around. I'm now a deacon in that church. I have a successful business. And my family follows Christ.
That's great. That's great. And this is the camp.
Story time is, so 4 characters tell a story, but it's actually their real life story of them growing up and their struggles. Then they ask you who you might relate to. Justin being the first guy that struggled with drugs, alcohol, and gang violence, and having a hard time at home. Yeah, I related to that.
Yeah, I related to all of them in some way. The 2 people, actually, that I related the most to were the girls. I'm exactly like her. It was actually this last week that my facade broke, and I broke down. But I related to the other girl, the anorexic one, because I've struggled with health issues, struggled with being too big and being too small, and going to hospital for that reason. They were telling my story at the same time of telling theirs.
It's pretty interesting to know that I'm not alone, and that there are other people out there that struggle with things that I struggle with.
God knows what I'm struggling with and know how to help me with that.
I wanna believe there's beauty here.
My story at camp was actually life-changing. Coming from a gang-related background, drugs and alcohol, gun violence, women, was all included in my life. I honestly needed this time at camp because when I came, I was very closed-minded and I just wanted to be by myself. I didn't want to talk to others until I met Don. Don actually opened up to me, so if he opens up to me, I figured that I might as well open up to others because it is my only week to get to know people that are surrounded by God. At the end of the week, I was so much more of a live person. I was happy, talkative, I had friends, God was in my life, and I was definitely a follower of God. I mean, I had always believed in God, but never strongly where I could actually feel like He's there for me and feel like I'm comforted by God, and I know that God has a plan for me. During camp, there was hard times, good times, sad times. I laughed, I cried. The people I was in my cabin with are literally, I would call my brothers now, because they're just so related to me and they have the same struggles as me. There was one night where Don was talking about God and he told us to go pray for 30 minutes by ourselves. That night was the night that I devoted my life to God. But I honestly felt like I didn't deserve God. I felt like Satan was in my path. God answered so many of my questions, but leaving that camp, I felt blessed by God, and I felt like I had people that actually cared for me, which I didn't feel like that before. Felt like I was on my own, and I was alone. I was in a really dark place.
How many times have you given me strength?
But I left that camp a really happier person. And I'm definitely going back next year, because that camp was amazing. For whoever's listening to this right now, if you were at that camp, somehow, some way, you have affected my life for the better. And I just want to say thank you. I really mean that.
People could literally just sponsor a child or a group of children to go to this camp, to give them that opportunity of clarity. By checking your website, they can get all the details on that.
Right, because many of these kids, especially if they come from single-parent homes.
You know, so many times in our culture we hear that the children are our greatest asset, you know? Mm-hmm. Yet society doesn't seem to treat it that way, but if people truly believe that children are our greatest treasure, there's no greater investment than your time and talent and resources, your treasure in this situation.
Biblically speaking, the Bible does say where your heart is, therefore is your treasure also. So if your heart is with kids, you'll be doing whatever you can to invest in them.
Okay, we got about 3 minutes left, and there's so many volunteers, there's so many people that are part of Youth for Christ. And they, of course, they all share the passion for Christ, but their lived experience and the things that they've lived also has been their motivation as well. There must be a wide variety of passions, if you will, that some of the people have. Can you maybe share a couple of examples?
Well, we have a wide variety of people who care about youth, but we are very focused on what we're trying to do. Our hope is to lay the foundation right now over the next 5 years nationally to reach 1 million kids. Locally, we want to reach and expand our reach to reach 10 to 15,000 kids. The passion that we look for with people, if you're an automotive mechanic, you can work with 5 kids and teach them how to work on cars.
So vocational opportunities to share that knowledge as well.
Right. You know, there's a lot of internships for college. Well, this is a life internship by the average person doing what they do best with 5 kids in tow. Just showing them how to do these things. If you play guitar, you can teach 5 kids how to play and still minister to them and lead them in a small group, a variety of things. We try and surround the youth of a school or a neighborhood with as many caring adults and empower those adults to have relationships with those kids that are positive, that are biblically based, and that help those kids become productive members of society in the future and part of the local church.
And how effective have the young people been on a peer-to-peer basis in evangelizing and sharing the faith, bringing hope?
We have a program that we do with kids that are Christians that we call CORE, and we teach them how to share their faith with their friends. I started doing that particular kind of thing back in the late 80s, early 90s at Centennial High School. And we were helping kids learn how to share their faith with their friends, and we would meet once a week and go over their personal growth, and then they go share what they learned with their friends. And it was interesting because by the end of the school year, the 10 kids that were in that group not only shared their faith with their friends, they led their teacher to Christ. Because at different periods of the day, several of them had the same teacher. So it's very effective.
So their example, their lived experience brought the light of Christ into people's life.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Fred, for being here with us today. Thank you for all the work you do, and thank you for giving your life
Well, thank
to
you for
Christ
having
in
me.
this very real way. And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. God bless you. Goodbye.
Even if the sky falls down, even if the world blows up, just like I'm down for you now, I'll be down no matter what. 'Cause even if the sky falls down, even if the world blows up, just like I'm down for you now, I'll be down no matter what. 'Cause even if the sky
You can see where this is going. I'm always out of town. You see me on YouTube videos. I'm in a party and I'm shutting it down. Then you flip through pictures on Facebook. Everything you see ain't how it may look. And then you see the comments on my tweet deck. Don't believe everything you read on the internet. You're my one and only. I'll never leave you lonely. I don't know why they hate me, but my guess is they don't know me. Cause they try to say I speak too quick. When I get money, this is all gon' switch. People spread rumors about things I did. Like you don't speak to people cause the head too big. That's cause I keep it low pro. Last year I was loco. Since then I've been around the world and they say the flow is loco. All I did was make a couple songs. I never knew that it would end up like this. Now they calling me a rising star when all I wanna do is be a light in the darkness.
sky falls down, even if the world blows up, just like I'm down for you now, I'll be down no matter what. 'Cause even if the sky falls down, even if the world blows up, just like I'm down for you now, I'll be down no matter what. 'Cause even if the sky
I know that you from out this world. Me, I'm from Michigan. But I'm headed where you headed to the end, so hop in, we can take a spin. I got them windows down, and when we finna cruise, I like to ride in silence, but I love it when the bass go boom. We can play, let's make a deal. I let you call the shots, I let you take the wheel, and I can ride shot. Or I can take you to the mountaintop, show you that you're special, and I can scream so loud when I stop, you hear my echo, echo, echo. This is a cold world, you're my